All right, and we should be live on the internet, on the interwebs. Welcome to the Plurilock LinkedIn channel. Thanks, Mike, for joining us today. Welcome back to the 12 Days of Cyber Christmas here from Plurilock. We are here joined by Mike Schwartz, CEO of Gluu. Thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, we're obviously trying to be festive here. You can see that I'm feeling pretty festive with my Santa hat, my little background. And Mike has luckily come in looking like he's in some type of winter cabin. Are you at the cabin right now?
Yeah, we're actually in the Austin, Texas cabin with the ranch behind us. So we're having a very green Christmas here.
Yeah, that's good. Austin's, great city. I was going to say there's probably not much snow there like there is here, or like there isn't here in Victoria either. We're like the only place in Canada probably right now that doesn't have snow. But the topic of today's discussion is cybersecurity. Gluu, maybe for those who don't know, just give a quick overview of what Gluu does. I know you guys are in open source, mainly around identity, not as specifically cybersecurity, but maybe just give like the 30-second Cole's notes of what Gluu does.
Sure. Gluu has an open source digital identity platform that provides the federation services that are needed to connect people and applications. So if you've ever logged into Google and they authenticate you, and then they maybe send you a second factor token, and then finally you authorize an application and you say, oh, okay, well, this application can update my calendar. So that whole interaction is based on open standards like OpenID Connect, and Gluu provides the software like Google to enable companies and organizations and governments to digitally authenticate people in software. Does that help?
Yeah, and that's a big job. It's a huge lift, obviously, because that's where we're at with so many interfaces. Everything we do in society now needs you to connect to some type of internet portal in some way or some type of web application. And yeah, authenticating and identity is a big issue right now. So how is 2021 for Gluu working in the space with authentication and securing that side of things?
Yeah. So it was a really interesting year. As before, there was a trend to cloud identity. So companies like Okta have been really successful getting companies to move identity out of the IT organization on the workforce side. But as you say, digital identity is tied to so many transactions, so government, business, IoT, and so workforce isn't the only identity challenge out there. So for us, we have been working hard to make a clear line between the open source project and the commercial Gluu organization who monetizes and supports the project. We are completing the migration of the code base to the Linux Foundation under a new project called the Jansen Project. And so we're moving to one single repository to sort of make it easier to pull down the whole stack and deploy it and see the changes. So for us, I would say, in 2022, we'll see a more clear delineation between this is the open source and this is the commercial offering. And both are going to be useful in production for different types of organizations. And we'll also be introducing some cloud offerings in 2022, like Gluu Solo, which is a hosted Gluu server, one server VM offering that we think will be an interesting option for a lot of organizations in the market. So just a preview. Yep.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a busy year. And I mean, it was from the other people I've talked to in the space, been a super busy year for everyone, obviously with COVID and stuff like that. We chatted quickly before the show here about your interest in FIDO tokens as a kind of a developing trend and some new technology that's going to be big, you think, in 2022. What are your kind of thoughts on that side of things going into the new year?
Yeah. So, everyone is probably familiar with, your older style, tokens like the YubiKey. This is actually the biometric one. But and they have new, these are what we call the USB keys. This one's like Lightning and USB-C.
Yeah.
And there's a proliferation of these tokens out there. This is the Authentication. It's also a fingerprint FIDO 2 token. So we're seeing a proliferation of USB tokens, which is good. Old security model. Here's a key, physical key, goes back to medieval times. But what we're seeing is more important in the FIDO area is a trend towards using FIDO 2 biometric device-based credentials. So you're probably familiar with something like, the fingerprint reader on your iPhone, or I have a pretty fancy MacBook Air computer, and it has a Touch ID on the keyboard of the laptop. So the trend that we're seeing is that more devices are have some type of biometric capability and are tying that to the private key storage in the device and are creating some very, very effective and easy to use authentication capabilities that are built into the device you already bought. So, so I think that in 2022, we're going to see both trends. We'll see more cool USB tokens, mostly used by geeks and really security paranoid people. But then widespread adoption of FIDO device-based authentication because it's built into the browser and it's being built into the devices and it's super secure and avoids phishing. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And even for me, like I wouldn't consider myself I work for a security company, so I am a security nerd in that way. But it's very easy to use. Like I also have I have a MacBook Pro, and it has the fingerprint scanner on the front top thing. And I think even for anyone, like my dad, old, he's not a tech guy at all. If he's signing onto his computer at the beginning of the day and then does his fingerprint scan, super easy. But it's also like it's a very high level of security, right? And so you're saying that web applications are going to maybe do calls down to, since hardware is becoming more widespread, built in with these tokens, they'll do call downs to those types of authenticators. Because I've even known when I have to buy something off the Apple Store or whatever, it'll ask for my fingerprint and then it'll be in.
The web browser is the main interface for the user authentication workflow. So if you ever use GitHub, another geeky thing, but I love how it's a command line program but they put you through the authentication flow over the web, and then you give them the token. So the web browser is really the thing we have for authentication for people, and what we're seeing is that the W3C, who really drives all the web browser vendors, has aligned on FIDO, and they call it web authentication. And in fact, it's the W3C sort of picking up this issue that's really enabled cross-device. But there are APIs if you're writing a mobile app to access basically the browser. We're going to actually see those APIs probably change in the next year or so, because a lot of them are based on third-party cookies. And there's going to be Chrome is introducing a new federated identity API to enable authentication but not tracking. Nobody wants to be tracked, and we're getting tracked, like every which way but Friday. So we don't want to disable federated login, like login with Google, login with Facebook. We want that to work, but we don't want to have to sacrifice privacy. So, but yeah, the browser is definitely is one that we want. How do you authenticate the browser, the user? It's going to be in the browser, and the browser is going to expose APIs to other systems. So.
Yeah, well, that's cool, and that obviously way more about this than I personally do. So that makes sense in the way that you explain it. It's like, everyone's on, they're using browsers to access everything they do, and if there can be more of a communication between the hardware and the whatever websites or whatever they're using to authenticate, that's better for everyone. I'm assuming that's going to help, if they can get to a passwordless state in that way, and they can just use the authenticators, then that can maybe even help, general phishing when people's credentials get stolen from a mass breach and then stuffed in other places.
I'll be a little counterintuitive and say maybe passwords have a comeback in 2022. We've gone too far against passwords, and that the problem is passwords have a huge attack surface area. That's true, But fundamentally, something you know is still a good trick that we have for authenticating people. So I think that there are ways to use passwords when you actually make the person type in the username and password that can be used to actually bring back what you know as an interesting and effective way to authenticate people. So I think that we will hopefully in 2022 get better at password authenticating people. My counter society.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, passwords, they're not necessarily evil. It's just they've been exploited in some ways. But yeah, like you said, hopefully we can get better at doing it. Maybe using behavioral biometrics like Plurilock provides. Other things like as a second factor, like these FIDO tokens. So, I don't know. To me, that provides you just painted a positive picture for me going into 2022. Thinking about new ways and better developments in the ways that things can be done online. So that's good.
How you type your password is we've been looking at that as there's been technology to look at that since like the 70s, like sci-fi movies showing that, but actually they were doing it in the 70s and 80s. And so people are very unique. And if you can interact with them and observe them, then you can tell all sorts of, you can detect fraud, basically. You can detect this person trying to be this other person. And I think that getting smarter, ideally, we have no authentication. I walk up to my computer and it knows it's me.
Totally.
But until that point, we're going to have some friction.
That's exactly right. That is the end goal. That's the oasis. That's the nirvana that we're all trying to get to. I'm just like, computer's like, hello, Stephen. I can tell that you're you.
Hello.
It's like another person idea. Anyways, Mike, thanks. I know your time's tight here. Thanks for hopping on here to join us for our Cyber Christmas check-in. If people want to connect with you or with Gluu, where's the best place for them to find you?
Gluu.org.
Gluu.org.
Yeah.
Simple.
That's it.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks, my friend. This has been the third day of the 12 days of Cyber Christmas. Join us again on Monday morning for another episode. Thanks, Mike, and we will see you guys all later.
Merry Christmas.